What's up guys, today we will be talking about the iPhone 11 versus the OnePlus 8 in 2022. So if you're interested in getting an older flagship, I think these are two pretty awesome older flagships to consider. So let's go ahead and run through these guys and see which one was going to be best for you. So let's start off with the hardware because these are two actually really well built phones in my opinion. You can see the iPhone 11 is a much shorter phone than the OnePlus 8. And I think as far as like weight, they both honestly feel the same. The OnePlus 8 looks a little bit thinner to me actually, but not by much. As far as the hardware goes, they're both glass and metal devices here. They're both IP68 dust and water resistant as well. And they're both very well built phones in the hand for sure. Now the display is actually kind of a big thing here because depending on if you watch a lot of content, this is going to be an important decision factor here. So the OnePlus 8 does have a much bigger display at 6.5 inches. It is a fluid AMOLED and it's a 90 hertz display compared to the iPhone 11 60 hertz display. It also is a, like I said, fluid AMOLED 1080p panel, 402 for the PPI. The iPhone 11 does have the liquid retina IPS panel and it is a 6.1 inch display. And then you also have a 720p plus resolution, 326 for the PPI with True Tone. So basically the OnePlus 8 has the much better display as far as specs, and in my opinion as far as looks, it does not have as big of a notch. As you can see, it has a punch hole. The iPhone has a much bigger notch. Also, the OnePlus 8, depending on whether you like it or not, does have a curve to the display as well too, which you may or may not like. But it's a 1080p panel versus the lower resolution of 720p plus on the iPhone 11. And in addition to that, it is a 90 hertz panel. So the OnePlus 8, it does feel overall smoother when you're scrolling and swiping and stuff like that. Especially you notice it in applications like Instagram and stuff like that. You'll definitely notice it, pretty frequently that this just feels smoother than a 60 hertz panel for sure. So as far as display, I think if you watch a lot of content, the OnePlus 8 is definitely the phone to go with. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about software with these two phones. So the iPhone 11 does have a pretty big advantage. It is running iOS 15.5. This phone's lifespan probably is going to go another 5 years of major OS updates, maybe 6. The OnePlus 8, it is getting the Android 12 update, and I believe this is supposed to get the Android 13 update as well too. So as you can see, that's kind of a big jump. So at Android 13, this stops getting major OS updates and then it goes into security patch stages. The iPhone 11, it could possibly go another 6-7 years. How do we know that? Is because the iPhone 6s and the iPhone 7, I believe, are running iOS 15.5 as well too. So that's always a big decision factor. But if we go ahead and talk about the actual specs with here, we do have on the OnePlus 8, we have Snapdragon 865 and Adreno 650, 128 gigs of internal storage on the base model and 6 gigs of RAM. And then on the iPhone, we have the Apple A13 chip, no SD card support on both of these guys as well too, 64 gigs of internal storage and 4 gigs of RAM. So we do get more storage on the OnePlus 8 as far as the base model goes. Now, when we go ahead and look at our Geekbench scores here, the iPhone 11's processor is still pretty impressive in 2022. I think it beats the OnePlus 8 by a pretty decent margin. Not as much as in the not the single, but the multi-core scores here actually fairly similar. But they both feel pretty much on par with each other as far as speed. These are two very fast feeling phones in the hand. They launch applications very fast here. So in general, as far as the overall smoothness and stuff like that, you're not going to be lagging on either of these phones. They both do a pretty good job with smoothness and stuff like that. I would say the only thing that you're really going to feel on these phones is probably the 90 hertz versus like the 60 hertz. It just feels smoother scrolling. But these are two very fast phones. So like I said, regardless of which phone you go with, they're going to be very fast. Now, if you go ahead and open up PUBG, if you're a gamer, these two phones actually do such a great job at gaming. You can play at high settings on pretty much all games. So I'll go ahead and update this and I'll show you guys. If you are a gamer on a budget, the OnePlus 8 actually makes more sense because it plays at the same settings and it's significantly cheaper, around 200 to 250 bucks. I'll have those links down below, and you can see I can play PUBG at 90 frames, which is absolutely crazy. And the iPhone 11, I can still play at pretty high settings, but you can't play at 90 frames on here. You can play, yeah, you can play at Smooth Extreme, HDR Extreme. They have the same settings, but the OnePlus 8 just does a better job because it has that 90 hertz display, so it's able to play, you know, at 90 frames. So yeah, so for gaming, I actually would go for the OnePlus 8 because it's actually able to play, I think 60 frames on Fortnite, and also Call of Duty Mobile as well too. So it's just a better gaming device to me as far as like the optimization goes. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the additional features. So on the OnePlus 8, we do have our physical, not our physical, but our in-display fingerprint sensor, which works very fast, very smooth, by the way. You also have the capability of face unlock. I do prefer like the physical, why do I keep saying physical? The in-display fingerprint sensor along with the, you know, face unlock. The iPhone, it does have Face ID, which is more secure than the face unlock on the OnePlus 8, but it doesn't have any type of physical fingerprint scanner or in-display fingerprint scanner. So I do prefer that, the way that, you know, Android does it, giving you those two options instead of one. Also, let's go ahead and talk about the speaker quality on here. Let's see if we can notice a significant difference here in terms of speaker quality. Let's go ahead and max out the iPhone, start with that. Almost sounds similar. I think the iPhone 11 has a little bit more bass. Yeah, but I do like the sound of the OnePlus 8 a little bit more. It just sounds a little bit more balanced. It really comes down to personal preference here. They both do a really good job as far as the stereo speakers go. And you can obviously tune them to how you want them to sound. Also, the vibration motors in both these phones are pretty strong as well too. So overall, in general, the sound on these phones and vibrations are pretty good. Let's go ahead and talk about the cameras on these phones. So with the OnePlus 8, there's a triple camera setup on the back here. So it does have a 48 megapixel shooter, so it gets a little bit more detailed shots as far as, you know, the resolution as compared to the iPhone 11. 16 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro camera, which is really not that great. And then you also have 4K 60 video, and then a 16 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 1080p 30. So the iPhone 11 still has a very good and respectable camera setup. You'll be surprised. I'll show you guys these side-by-side stills in a second here, but the iPhone 11 does have a 12 megapixel standard and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It does not have any type of telephoto lens that the OnePlus 8 does have. And then you also have on the iPhone 4K 60 video, and then you have a 12 megapixel selfie cam that also shoots in 4K 60 as well too. So it kind of has that advantage as far as video. All right, so I'll go ahead and show you guys these side-by-side stills. Let me know, what do you guys think? Here's a video on the iPhone 11. Here's our ultra wide. Here's the video on the OnePlus 8. And we do have our 0.6 ultra wide. But on the OnePlus 8, we do have our 2x telephoto, so we can actually zoom in the shots and stuff like that, which we do lack on the iPhone. Alright, so lastly we need to talk about battery life. So the battery life is actually very good on both of these devices. You can easily get 6 hours of screen on time with these two devices. The OnePlus 8 does have a 4,300 milliamp battery with 30-watt fast charging, so this phone charges much faster than the iPhone 11. The iPhone 11 only charges at 18 watts. And you also do not have any type of wireless charging on the OnePlus 8, so that is kind of like a con with this phone. So the iPhone 11 has a 3,110 milliamp battery, and then this one does have wireless charging, so you can take advantage of that. And yeah, so as far as screen on time, they both actually do a really good job. It just depends. Do you want wireless charging or do you want the faster cable charging? So in general, these are two very good, older flagships. The OnePlus 8 being cheaper and having, I think, a lot of advantages as far as the screen, and also as far as just the gaming optimization on this phone is pretty nice. And I think Oxygen OS is just really smooth as well too. It's one of my favorite skins for Android. It really just comes down to that. I think the cameras are actually kind of close. I was kind of leaning towards the iPhone 11 in some of the shots, but it was kind of going back and forth for me. I thought the cameras were pretty close. So what do you guys think? Should you get the iPhone 11 or the OnePlus 8? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.